Today on the channel, it's the return of the Kyle Peterson Top 5, and today we've got a simply ravishing Top 5, as we're going to take a look at my personal Top 5 ravishing Rick Rude figures.
The spirit of Ultimate Warrior will run forever!
Welcome everyone, Kyle here, and welcome back to the channel for another edition of the Kyle Peterson Top 5, and today we've got a special one. We've got one of the greatest heels of the 80s in the WWF, of course. We're talking about ravishing Rick Rude, and Rick Rude was one of those guys, I guess, kind of similar to a Jake the Snake Roberts, but he did have the Intercontinental title, Rick Rude, at one time, but he was kind of a gatekeeper to the main event scene, always top of the bill of the Intercontinental title hunt, and then when the Ultimate Warrior became world champion, he was right there, feuding with the Ultimate Warrior once again over that World Heavyweight title. Sad that I don't really remember Hulk Hogan and Rick Rude ever having a match during that time frame, those years. I don't know how that would have looked, but Rick Rude, very, very underrated, and very underrated in the action figure game, as he has not seemed to have had as many figures as you would imagine Rick Rude to have. Of course, he goes back to the LJNs. He's got a Hasbro, he's got some Mattels, he's got some Jakks Classics, but that's about it. I always felt they should have been a little bit more Mattel figures from him at this point. We've got a good representation, but I think there is more meat on the old bone they could do with ravishing Rick Rude. I don't know how the time frame totally worked up, but I would have loved to have seen him with a WCW Galoob. I guess he probably just missed that era just barely. His WCW run, he had a great run on the WWF back in the day against the Ultimate Warrior, especially if you ask me. Some good feuds, some good, that really blew him up onto the national radar. But man, when he went to WCW, he lit WCW on fire for young Kyle. The Dangerous Alliance, some of my favorite years of WCW were with Rick Rude. The shorter hair, his feuds with Sting, just amazing time for a Rick Rude fan. If you didn't check out that era of Rick Rude, man, you're really missing out. Of course, injuries took him out of the game much, much too soon. He came back in ECW, which was amazing. I loved his time in ECW. He was totally extreme. And then, of course, he went to WWE, then over to WCW. He floated around. He jumped around. He was all over the place. Of course, being on two shows at one time is one of his biggest claim to fame. And it's crazy that we've never got a suited Rick Rude for DX. Hopefully that's in the plans for Mattel one of these days. I'm all in for that as well. But Rick Rude, definitely a superstar of the 80s, and a little bit harder of a top 5 than I thought it would be, and it's an interesting top 5, as you're going to see here shortly. But as usual with these top 5 videos, these are my top 5 Rick Rude figures. Make sure you put your list in the comments down below. I'd like to hear what your list is, and you got to put them in order. That is the hard part. That's the challenge of this assignment. So, of course, starting at number 5, working our way to number 1. So without further ado, let's kick it off. Let's look at my number 5 Rick Rude figure. All right, we kick off the Rick Rude countdown at number 5, and number 5 is a very interesting one, possibly the most interesting figure on this list, as he was a part of another list on the top 5s not too long ago, just a few short weeks ago, and this is Rick Rude LJN, and this was a part of my most disappointing wrestling figures of all time. So it's amazing you can go from most disappointing figures of all time to a top 5 list like this one has, but here we are, 2022, it's starting out really crazy here. But Rick Rude, LJN, very iconic. A lot of people know this Rick Rude, and not for all the right reasons, because it is pretty terrible, but boy, is it iconic. When I close my eyes and I think Rick Rude figure, this one always pops up to me. Unfortunately, the playability factor is 0. There's no playability. That's why I did not get it as a little kid. I got it many years later, and obviously I'm happy I have it now. But very, very iconic. I'll never forget looking in the magazine, seeing this for the first time, and just saying, what? What kind of figure is this? I can't even play with this. So it was super disappointing because Rick Rude was feuding. He was hot at that time. He was feuding with the Ultimate Warrior. I needed Rick Rude. But even Kyle, who wanted every figure he could, didn't even want this Rick Rude back in the day, which is funny. So it always does hold a special piece of my heart because of that. But it is also very iconic. A lot of people think of this when they think of Rick Rude. Is it my favorite? No. But it made the list at number 5, and it is a very interesting one. And it, actually, all these years later, a bit of a pricey Rick Rude figure. As far as LJNs go, this is one of your more expensive LJN figures because it didn't get wide distribution like some of the earlier sets of LJNs. But number 5 for me, LJN, Rick Rude. All right, now we're at the number 4 spot, and Rick Rude, looking at my top 5, he's got some very controversial figures. You guys are going to learn some stuff. Maybe not everybody's going to learn some stuff in this video, but some of you guys definitely will learn a few things. Just a very, very interesting list with these Rick Rude figures. So let's go number 4. We talked about that LJN being iconic for my generation. People always know that one. People have seen that one. Well, another one that's probably even more iconic, dare I say, coming in at number 4 is the Rick Rude Hasbro. Going it way back to the old Hasbro days. Now, this is once again controversial, as this was the first time we ever saw this mold in Hasbro. Later, of course, we got this with Ric Flair. Ugh, don't even get me started on that one. We also saw it with the 1, 2, 3 Kid, which worked in my book. Didn't work for everybody, but definitely worked for me. This Rick Rude, somewhere in the middle. So this was our first go around with this one. It didn't look so bad. It felt like Rick Rude, but he felt awfully skinny compared to some of the other figures in the line. But I gave this one a pass, and I enjoyed playing with this one, where the Ric Flair just was a mess. The head sculpt was a mess. It's not what I wanted out of a body on Ric Flair. I just was very disappointed about that one. I give Rick Rude a pass. This one worked really good because he could do the Rude Awakening. He was set up perfectly for that. And once again, this was one of the first figures we got back in the day, so your expectations weren't all there. You hadn't seen a lot of the other good molds. I was okay with this one. Not my favorite Rick Rude figure, and as far as Hasbros go, this wouldn't even be probably in my top 10 favorite Hasbros. But for the moment in time when this was new, I was okay with it. All these years later, it is very iconic as far as Rick Rude figures go. A lot of people have this one. It isn't one of the more expensive Hasbro figures, so a lot of people do have this in their collection. It is definitely iconic, like most Hasbros are, and I would say most people of my age, their greatest experience was with this Rick Rude, as the LJN, not as easy to find, a little bit more pricey, all that kind of fun stuff. So everybody seemed to have this Rick Rude, much like the Jake the Snake Hasbro, Hulk Hogan, Macho. You get the picture there. But Rick Rude, Hasbro, coming in at number 4. All right, we're at the halfway point in our Rick Rude countdown. Make sure you put your list in the comments down below, and make sure you put them in order like I always say. But number 3 for me comes from my favorite wrestling figure line of all time. This was my prime years of collecting. I had so much fun tracking every one of these sets down. Of course, we do a video every single Tuesday on the channel. For over 2 years now, we've had a video every single Tuesday, and that is Jakks Classic Superstars. But what Jakks are we talking about? Are we going into the Deluxe Classic? Are we going to the Traditional Classic? Yeah, we're going Traditional Classic. We're going to Classic Superstars Series 13, Ravishing Rick Rude, a beautiful one. And this one was one of those aha moments where you just like jump light years into the next generation of toys. I just couldn't believe at the time, oh my gosh, I'm finally getting the Rick Rude, the one I don't have any issues with. And you can find issues with any figure, but this one, pretty dang cool. I love the tights on him with the ravishing. Of course, the soft goods robe, something we'd never had in the past. I will say, as far as haircuts go, I was never a big fan of the big permed Rick Rude hair. It's always interesting, but I always loved the mustache. Was always a big fan of the mustache. And nobody took an atomic drop better than Ravishing Rick Rude. Of course, he does come with the Intercontinental title as well. Just absolutely fabulous figure from the Classic Superstars line. On the back, you got the rest of Classic Superstars Series 13. Look at how that was back in the day. We've talked about it in those Tuesday Jakks videos, cheap plug, but look how big those sets were. Can you imagine that today's day and age? We're used to sets of 6, usually, something like that. That is a huge, huge set of figures in Series 13. Some heavy, heavy hitters that I think we would really love to have from Mattel. Jesse Ventura, Brother Love, Al Snow, the Mountie. Who else we got? Luna Vachon, Draws, Bad News Brown, Bret Hart WrestleMania 2, Dusty Rhodes. I don't think any of us would turn our nose up if we got any of these from Mattel in this day and age. Very cool figures, very cool line. Part of the specialness of the Jakks Classic Superstars line, and that's why this one comes in at number 3. Rick Rude, Classic Superstars, Series 13. All right, we're getting down to the end here. We're at the final 2 Rick Rude figures. Any guesses? Oh, I don't know if you'll guess this one. I don't think you will, and this is part of the learning experience. And some of you guys that are going to watch this video, this is going to be brand new news to you. Some of you longtime fans, maybe you know about this. But Ravishing Rick Rude, of course, Legends Series 2 Ravishing Rick Rude. A fabulous figure, fabulous robe. I talked about it earlier. He's got the short hairstyle. I really do want more short-haired Rick Rudes. That was my favorite era. Just definitely looks really good. This is really cool. I like this a whole lot, but this isn't the one that's coming in at number 2 for me. It's very close to that, but what is it? It is the Mattel UK exclusive 2-pack Ultimate Warrior with steel cage ring. Very, very similar to this figure, but a little different color tones. I like this darker red more than the lighter red. That is the big difference between these two. But a lot of people do not know this Rick Rude figure exists. Obviously, it was a UK ring exclusive with the Ultimate Warrior. The Ultimate Warrior is the exact same Ultimate Warrior we got here in the States. Rick Rude is colored differently. So if you're collecting elites, you have a complete elite collection, you have to have this version of Rick Rude. And I'm not being just some guy like, oh, I'm going to this because it looks better, or I feel it's better, I'm trying to be a snob or something. I actually do like this. Unfortunately, this one did not come with the robe, so this does get points for the robe. But this one, to me, really does, it's supposed to be WWF Ultimate Warrior cage match from SummerSlam, of course. I'll never forget that match. But this one really feels like, since there's no robe here, I just always use this one, and I do use this and display this one in my WCW shelf as Rick Rude, WCW time frame, short hair. That's how I use this one. But I really, really do like this one. Obviously, this one's close. For a lot of people, this one would be good enough. But for somebody like me, I had to have both versions. And I do truly prefer the Mattel exclusive UK cage match ring one to the Legends regular release version of Rick Rude. So some of you guys maybe didn't even know this existed until this video, and some of you diehards, maybe you did know that, but hopefully we all learned something here today. But this Rick Rude coming in at number 2. Now we're down to the end. Who's number 1? Stay tuned. All right, we've came to the end. What is Kyle's number 1 Ravishing Rick Rude figure of all time? Well, we're going to find out, but first, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. Hit the old notification bell. As you guys know, every single Thursday here on the channel, we're counting down something. And Rick Rude's this week. What'll be next week? Well, like I said, subscribe, hit the notification bell. You made it this far, give the old thumbs up, of course, and then follow along on Patreon, where you can get these top 5 lists, tons of other videos, weeks, sometimes months earlier, giveaways, all kinds of fun on the Patreon, so check that one out in the link in the description below. So without further ado, let's get down to it. Let's get down to the number 1 Rick Rude figure, and this one comes once again from Mattel. It comes from the SummerSlam wave, SummerSlam Series 77, Ravishing Rick Rude. When I think of Ravishing Rick Rude as far as most iconic attires of all time, I always think of these Ultimate Warrior tights. Of course, we do once again get the nice robe with Rick Rude here. Very, very cool figure, but once again, very controversial. You can't have controversy without Rick Rude. You get the UK one that's messing with people's minds. You get the Hasbro that's not the best mold that we're the biggest fans of. You get the LJN that's unplayable. And then, of course, you get this Rick Rude that was part of Stained Robe Gate a couple years ago. As many people, I would say basically everybody, unfortunately this Rick Rude jacket stained the figure. So the first wave of this figure came with the robe on the figure. The second wave, they packaged the robe separately. Just very disappointing to pay extra money. Say you're going to Ringside, Wrestling Collector's Shop, wherever, eBay, and you're paying extra money for this and your figure comes stained. It is very, very unfortunate. I have staining on mine as well, so I just left it on. I said, well, I'm not going to take the robe off. It's going to be stained. It is what it is. Some people don't have the staining. Of course, this was involved in the chase. He was also a chase, and that one stained even worse, especially with the yellow tights on that one. The staining was pretty bad, but it is what it is. It is pretty unfortunate out there. Anytime we get damaged figures, you pay and you work hard for your money, and you want your figures to be nice the way you want them to be, and you get disappointed on something like this. It is pretty disappointing, but take all that away from it. Still a very iconic version of Rick Rude. I like short hair Rick Rude better, but this is the most iconic version of Rick Rude. The robe, the long kind of flowing permed hair, and of course, for me, the Ultimate Warrior tights. You put him next to Warrior and you're off to the races in young Kyle's mind, and maybe some of your guys' as well. So that is my number 1 Rick Rude. Don't forget to put your Rick Rude top 5 countdown in the comments down below. Follow along on social media at SirPaul64 on Twitter, Instagram, _Kyle_Peterson, and ProWrestlingTees.com. Support the channel. Pick up a t-shirt. So there it is for the top 5 Rick Rude figures of all time as voted by me. I'm Kyle. See you guys all real soon.